The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and decomposing leaves. Overhead, the emerald canopy breathed and shifted, casting fragmented rays of light onto the humid jungle floor. Nothing about this place welcomed outsiders. 5 men trudged through the underbrush, their boots muffled by moss and mulch. They moved in a loose V formation, rifles raised, eyes alert. They weren't tourists. Each carried the hard stare of someone who'd done worse than war. The jungle tried to swallow their presence, but they hacked and stamped their way forward. At the rear, a 6th man pushed a heavy cart with a steel crate secured inside. From within came faint, confused cries. A baby. ETA to sight. A voice crackled over the lead man's encrypted radio. 10 minutes, he grunted. No signs of patrol. The package is quiet. No one asked why a baby was being carted like contraband. They all knew better. By sunset, the group reached a clearing flanked by ancient kapok trees. They made camp, perimeter tripwires, motion sensors, and watch rotations. In the center, the steel crate sat atop a crate, cloaked in canvas. Night fell quickly. Strange noises, howls, rustles, low grunts began to echo. One man joked it was just monkeys. Another, older, stared silently into the dark. Sometime after midnight, the sensors blinked, then went dead. The first scream was short and sharp. By the time they reached the perimeter, one of their own was gone, just gone. Only his rifle lay on the jungle floor, bent like soft plastic. "Animal?" someone whispered. "No animal bends steel." They found bloody drag marks disappearing into the dense bush. Morning brought no sign of the missing man. They buried his gear. Nerves frayed. Then it struck again. Another ambush. A second man was dragged screaming into the jungle, his cries echoing until they were cut off with a crack. "Something's watching us," the youngest whispered that evening. That night, someone finally saw it. A towering black shape, eyes like firelight, standing perfectly still just beyond the tree line. It didn't run when spotted. It didn't roar. It simply watched. And behind it, nestled in thick roots, the baby's steel crate opened. The baby was gone. The forest exhaled. The hunt had begun. Late afternoon. A light rain falls on the canopy. A soldier is missing. Birds fall silent. The convoy has stopped. 2 jeeps, 1 armored truck. Soldiers spread out in defensive formation. They whisper the name of the missing man. Milo. Captain Reyes barks orders. Their guide, an old local named Bakari, pleads with them to turn back. He points to claw marks on nearby trees, deep gouges, not from a man. Suddenly, a scream cuts through the jungle. Everyone turns. Then silence again. Reyes. "We keep moving." Whatever's out there bleeds like everything else. That night, the men camp. Cameras set. Motion sensors. They drink and whisper around fires, but fear thickens the air. Inside the armored truck, a metal crate. Something whimpers inside. Private Novak, a new recruit, stares at the crate. He hears a faint baby's cry. He asks the sergeant, "Are we smuggling a kid?" He's told to shut up. But the look in the sergeant's eyes confirms his suspicion. Outside, Cabo, the silverback gorilla, watches from the trees. His breathing is slow, calculated. His eyes are not wild. They are focused. He remembers the child. Cabo's memory plays. He once lived peacefully near a research outpost. Scientists came and went. One, a young woman named Dr. Eleni Karras, raised a child there, Maya. Cabo was a guardian. He watched the child grow. She touched his face without fear. He felt bonded. Then one day, trucks came. Not scientists, men with guns. They took Eleni, killed others, took Maya in a crate. Cabo followed. He has tracked them for days. The convoy now holds what he swore to protect. The next morning, chaos. One of the jeeps is found ripped open like paper, blood smeared across the hood. Inside, no bodies, just claw marks and a cracked radio playing static. Captain Reyes is furious. He blames local militia, orders a sweep. While they're gone, Cabo strikes again, swift, surgical. He disables cameras, slashes tires, and vanishes. Private Novak sees him, just a glimpse. The eyes, intelligent, almost human. Novak whispers to another soldier, "That thing's not an animal. That's something else." Reyes begins to lose control. The men argue. Some want to abandon the mission, but the buyer is en route. A helicopter is coming in 2 days to extract the asset. Novak sneaks toward the crate again. He cracks it open. Inside, a crying baby. Maya. She's weak, dehydrated, and strapped with a GPS tracker. He realizes the truth. This isn't about money. This is trafficking. Novak decides, we're not leaving her behind. He just doesn't know that Cabo is listening. Watching him from the trees, that night, Cabo enters the camp. Full moon above. No fear in his eyes. A soldier on watch turns. Too slow. Cabo's hand covers his mouth. A crack. He's gone. He disables power. Then takes Maya. Alarms blare. Soldiers pour out. Weapons ready. The jungle ignites with muzzle flashes. Novak shouts, "Don't shoot! He's got the girl! He's not killing her!" But Reyes orders fire. Bullets rake the trees. One hits Cabo in the shoulder. He growls. But he does not drop the baby. Cabo disappears into the jungle, bleeding, Maya clutched to his chest. Reyes orders pursuit at dawn. Novak makes a choice. He's going with them. But not to kill Cabo. To protect him. Because something deep inside Novak believes what no one else dares say. That gorilla is a better man than any of us. The sun rose red over the jungle, thick mist curling through the trees like ghosts reluctant to leave. The ground was still wet with the blood of the last night's madness. Private Novak stood at the edge of the camp, rifle slung over one shoulder, watching the trail of broken foliage where the silverback had vanished into the undergrowth. Somewhere in the darkness, the child, the baby girl he had held in his arms only hours ago, was gone. And with her, the creature the men now called the Beast. Captain Reyes barked orders with cracked fury, pacing beside the charred remains of the camp's central fire. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, his face bruised from a fall during the firefight. He looked less like a commanding officer now, and more like a cornered animal. The mercenaries were exhausted, eyes bloodshot, nerves frayed to snapping. Half of their supplies had been crushed or ruined in the chaos. 3 men were missing. No one wanted to speak their names. We track it. We kill it. We get the asset back and we're out of this hell, Reyes growled, slamming a fresh magazine into his rifle. That thing took a child, and if you think I'm letting some jungle freak cost us this payday, you're dead wrong. Novak said nothing. He hadn't slept. All night he'd replayed the image over and over again in his mind. The silverback cradling the baby, like a father shielding his child from fire. It wasn't rage in the creature's eyes. It wasn't mindless aggression. It was purpose. Rage, yes, but the kind born of love, protection, pain. They moved out at dawn. The jungle swallowed them again, as it always did, each step dragging them deeper into the green throat of an ancient world that cared nothing for money, for pride, or for war. The air was thick and sweet with rot. Insects hummed. Somewhere distant, howler monkeys screamed like alarm bells. Novak noticed that Bakari, their guide, had stopped muttering his usual prayers. The man's face was pale. He walked slower than before, hands trembling over the map he refused to show Reyes anymore. Hours passed. Tracks were found, massive footprints, blood smeared along branches high above the ground. The silverback was wounded, but moving fast, faster than a creature his size had any right to. It made no sense. Reyes refused to hear it. He pushed the men forward like pawns on a board he didn't understand. One fell into a pit camouflaged by leaves, bamboo spikes piercing through thigh and stomach. Another stumbled too close to the wrong tree and was dragged into the foliage by a blur of fur and fury. No one even saw it coming. Still they pressed on. Novak tried to stay near Bakari. The older man had begun whispering something new under his breath now. Not prayers, but a name. Kaabo. Novak asked what it meant. He is the last, Bakari said hoarsely. The jungle chose him. Protector. Spirit of vengeance. He was not born to be this way, but man made him so. The others didn't listen. Reyes had stopped pretending this was a mission. He wanted the gorilla's head. The baby was now secondary, proof of failure. All that mattered was revenge. The jungle, it seemed, had other plans. As they crept down a ravine, the smell of smoke reached them. Burnt wood. Something man-made. They emerged into a small clearing, an old fire pit at its center, ashes still warm. Footprints surrounded it, both human and simian. Novak knelt and examined a small impression in the dirt. Tiny. The baby's. She was here, he said, voice barely a whisper. Then he saw it, etched into the mud beside the child's print, something scrawled with a crude stick. A shape, unmistakable, a circle with 2 dots, a face, a message. She's alive, Novak breathed. He's leaving us a trail. Reyes laughed bitterly. What kind of animal leaves breadcrumbs? That thing's playing with us. But Novak shook his head. He's warning us. We're in his territory now. They made camp that night beneath gnarled banyan roots. The men slept with one eye open, guns clutched to their chests like crosses in a graveyard. Novak sat alone, cleaning his rifle more out of habit than necessity. In his pocket, he carried a small cloth doll he had found near the truck. Maya's. He squeezed it gently, thinking of the child's wide eyes, her trembling fingers. He remembered how she stopped crying when Kaabo held her. A sound broke the silence. Not branches snapping, not leaves rustling. A voice. Human. Low and terrified. Help! Novak and 3 others bolted upright. Flashlights swung through the darkness. There, crawling from the edge of camp, dragging one shattered leg behind him, was Corporal Diaz. His uniform was torn, one eye swollen shut, blood streaked down his chest. He let me go. Reyes rushed to him, grabbing the front of his vest. Who? The gorilla. What did he do? Diaz could barely speak. Looked in my eyes, just looked. Then he took the baby and walked away. He could have killed me. I had a knife. He spared me. No one said anything. The only sound was the clicking of insects and the occasional hiss of far-off predators. Diaz passed out before he could say more. Reyes ordered him restrained. Novak objected, but was silenced. The next day, something changed. The jungle was quieter, stiller. Even the birds refused to sing. The trail grew clearer now. Too clear. Deliberate. And with it came traps. Spears swung from vines. Nets dropped from trees. One soldier was impaled by a falling log. Another lost a leg to a spring-loaded spike hidden in the moss. Kaabo was driving them mad. He's hurting us, Novak realized. He's leading us somewhere, Reyes snapped. He accused Novak of betrayal, of weakness, of going native. The men began to whisper of mutiny. Bakari vanished in the night. Some believed Kaabo spared him. Others thought the jungle simply reclaimed its own. That night, under a sky too full of stars, Novak stood watch alone. And Kaabo came. Not as a blur, not as a shadow, but walking upright in full view, holding the child in one massive arm. His fur was matted with blood, but his eyes were calm, purposeful. Novak didn't raise his weapon. "I won't stop you," he said. Cabo stared at him for a long time. Then he placed the child gently on the ground and stepped back into the trees. She cried once, softly, then crawled into Novak's arms. Moments later, the clearing exploded with gunfire. Reyes had seen everything. Screaming with rage, he charged into the dark after the silverback, spraying bullets wildly. The others followed. The jungle lit up like lightning. Novak stayed behind, shielding Maya with his body, whispering promises he didn't know if he could keep. In the distance, a roar split the night. It wasn't pain, it wasn't fear, it was judgment. And the jungle listened. Rain returned to the jungle like a curtain falling on a shattered stage. The storm rolled over the trees in thick, endless sheets, soaking the blood from leaves, drowning the scent of gunpowder. Novak sat beneath a canvas flap torn from a dead man's pack, cradling Maya against his chest, her breathing shallow but steady. Her warmth anchored him, but it could not stop the sound of the hunt that still echoed through the trees. Distant shouting, the bark of rifles, the thunderous footsteps of a giant being chased like an animal. But Cabo was no animal. Somewhere out there in the green, he was still running, or fighting, or waiting. Novak didn't know. The only thing he knew was that Reyes hadn't come back. The other mercenaries had split into small groups, some fleeing, some chasing shadows. Orders had broken down. Radios crackled with static and shouts. Fear had cracked open the men's minds. Half of them believed Cabo was a ghost, some forest demon that rose to punish sinners. The others had stopped caring whether he lived or died. They wanted out. But not Novak. He had seen the truth in that clearing. Cabo had brought the child back not as a trophy or a hostage, but as a farewell. A signal. This ends now. He wrapped Maya tighter and moved. He followed the tracks, the ones Cabo had left behind. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. He was drawing the final line. Hours passed in a blur of vines, mud, and distant thunder. Novak didn't stop. He didn't care about the bites on his arms or the thorns that tore his pants. His boots were falling apart, soaked through. The jungle seemed to make way for him, some invisible force guiding his feet forward. Then he found the first body, face down in the mud. Reyes's second in command, Sykes. His neck had been snapped clean, eyes frozen wide in disbelief. Around his corpse, footprints in a slow, circling pattern. Cabo had given him time, had watched him, judged him, then decided. Novak moved on. A second body, then a third. Not shredded or torn, executed. The sun began to rise behind sheets of fog, and then he saw it. An old, forgotten temple overgrown with moss and trees, stone crumbling beneath the weight of centuries. Vines coiled like veins across sacred carvings. Gorillas, children, spirits of protection. This place had once meant something, a shrine. And now it was Cabo's last stand. At the top of the steps, sitting slumped against a broken statue, was Reyes, alive. Barely. His gun lay on the stone beside him, unloaded. His chest heaved, blood matting the front of his shirt. His eyes flicked toward Novak as he approached. You saw him, didn't you?" Reyes asked, voice weak. Novak nodded. "I emptied 2 clips," Reyes muttered. "Didn't even scratch him. He stood there, looking at me, like I wasn't even worth killing." "He wasn't here to kill," Novak said. Reyes gave a bitter laugh. "Then why are we all dead?" "Because you made him into what he is." Reyes coughed hard, blood bubbling at his lips. "He's not just a gorilla." "No," Novak agreed. "He's the reckoning." Behind them, the jungle stirred. Cabo stepped into the clearing. Slow, upright, powerful. His left arm was wrapped in thick vines to stem the bleeding from a gunshot wound. His chest rose and fell with labored breath, yet his eyes were focused. Calm. Above them, sunlight broke through the canopy and lit his silvered fur like armor. Novak stood. He placed Maya gently on the moss-covered altar, then turned to Cabo and raised his empty hands. "She's safe now," he said. "I kept her safe." Cabo stepped forward. For a moment, he looked past Novak, at the child, at the altar, at the broken man who had once given the kill order. Then he turned his gaze back. Not at Novak, at Reyes. The captain coughed again, and his trembling fingers reached for the pistol at his side. "No," Novak said. "Don't." But Reyes grabbed it anyway, and lifted it with the last of his strength, aiming with both hands. Cabo didn't move. He let the bullet come. It struck his shoulder. Another wound, another mark. He didn't flinch. Then he walked forward and placed a massive hand on Reyes's head. No rage, no roar, just silence. Reyes sobbed. Not from pain, from shame. Then Cabo stepped back and left him there. Novak followed. He took Maya and walked at Cabo's side as the jungle swallowed them again. For hours they didn't speak. Not that they could. But Cabo didn't need words. His presence said enough. They came to a clearing by a river, where sunlight danced on the water and vines swayed gently in the wind. Cabo sat down, cradled his arm, and looked at the child. Maya reached out with tiny fingers and touched his face. He closed his eyes. Then he slumped forward. Novak rushed to him, panicked. "Number no, don't you dare!" He checked the pulse. Still there. Faint. Novak built a fire, cleaned the wounds, gave the gorilla water. He had no medical kit, no proper tools, just instinct and determination. He stayed awake through the night, watching over Cabo like the guardian the silverback had once been. By morning, Cabo breathed deeper. His eyes opened slowly. And for the first time, Novak saw the faintest flicker of peace. In the distance, the thrum of a helicopter echoed. Novak held Maya in one arm, raised the other to signal. But his eyes were still on Cabo. "You did it," he said. "You brought her home." Cabo looked to the trees, to the sky, to the sacred silence of the jungle. He rose slowly, towering, majestic even in pain. And then he disappeared into the green, leaving no trail. Not this time. Because now the jungle had judged. And it had found man guilty. The noise of the helicopter grew louder, blades thrumming like a heartbeat above the canopy. Novak stood in the clearing, soaked in mud and blood and ash, holding the baby girl close to his chest. Maya stirred, her cheek still red from the fever that had gripped her hours before. But she was breathing easier now. Her tiny hands curled into the fabric of Novak's shirt, and when the aircraft finally broke through the mist, he did not wave. He simply stood there, watching as the machine lowered from the sky like some god descending to the forest below. The rescue team didn't know what to make of the sight. A single man, a single child. No soldiers, no convoy, no cargo, no Reyes. They didn't ask questions right away. Protocols kicked in. Medics rushed forward. One took Maya, wrapping her in foil blankets, checking vitals. Another tried to usher Novak onto the chopper, but he resisted for a moment, glancing once more over his shoulder, into the trees, into the world that had swallowed Cabo whole. There was no sign of him now. No roar, no movement. Nothing. He had vanished as if he had never been. But he had been real. Novak would never doubt that. The jungle had judged, and Cabo had become its hand. Back at the field station, Novak was debriefed. Not interrogated, at least not at first. They fed him, gave him clean clothes, a bed. But then the questions came. Where was Reyes? What happened to the child? What was the nature of the mission? He told them pieces, not everything. He spoke of ambushes, of casualties, of a silverback gorilla that attacked the convoy, but only to retrieve the baby. He spoke of a pattern, a purpose, and he spoke of Reyes's obsession, of human traffickers hiding behind military contracts, of orders masked as humanitarian work, of a child stolen from a research site for black market sale. He said nothing about Cabo's intelligence. He didn't have to. They could read it in his eyes. There were those who believed him, enough to run with the story, enough to call in outside eyes. The footage from the drone cams was corrupted, most of it damaged or mysteriously missing. But body cams from some of the fallen mercs still had fragments, shadows moving between trees, guttural roars, glimpses of something immense. Nothing definitive, but enough to make headlines. Unknown. Primate interferes in jungle raid. Child rescued from alleged trafficking ring in Central Africa. Survivor speaks of gorilla that judged them. Some called it a hoax. Others accused Novak of hallucinations, trauma-fueled lies. But one thing they couldn't deny: the girl existed. She had been taken, and now she was safe. DNA linked her to Dr. Eleni Karas, presumed dead, now confirmed as a casualty from a field station massacre a year prior. Maya was returned to her extended family under UN protection. The trafficking ring began to unravel. Names surfaced. Arrests were made. Not enough, Novak thought. But it was something. He didn't return home. Instead, he stayed in the region, moving from village to village, sometimes offering security, sometimes aid. Quiet work. Work where his name didn't matter. But every now and then, when the trees grew too still, when the mist coiled just right, he would turn and feel the weight of unseen eyes watching. He knew it was Cabo, still out there, still guarding, still waiting. Months passed, then a year, then two, until one day, a grainy video appeared online. A tourist, hiking illegally through a restricted preserve, had dropped his phone while fleeing from what he thought was a charging animal. He escaped unharmed, but the phone survived. The footage was only 12 seconds long, shaky, unfocused. But in the last frame, frozen in time, a massive silverback standing upright beside a crying infant monkey, its body shielding the young one from a snake coiled in the branches above. The silverback looked directly into the lens, not aggressive, not afraid, just aware. The video went viral. Most dismissed it as fake, a deep fake, a man in a suit. But not everyone. Novak watched it 100 times. He didn't need confirmation. Cabo was still alive, still watching the jungle, still judging. And perhaps, just perhaps, waiting for the day the world would finally listen. Because one thing was certain now: the jungle remembers, and it doesn't forgive.